Well, good day, my friends. It's your old pal Jordan the Lion. How are you all doing today? I hope you said great. Today we are going to pay our respects to a woman who at one time was the tallest woman in the world. And whereas many people in her generation would have had to go work in a sideshow or for the circus, she didn't take that route. However, she would at times make a living off of her height, but she went about it in a little bit different way. We're going to talk about the great Sandy Allen today. Daze with Jordan the Lion and you all begins right now. She's actually pinned on Google Maps if you come and visit here yourself. And she's buried here because this is where she was raised, but she ended up living a few places throughout her life, including one of which being in Niagara Falls. Took us all the way to pretty much the back of the cemetery. What's kind of weird about it is Sandy being the world's tallest woman for so long, you would think, a big part of her life was just trying to be normal and trying to fit in. So it was kind of strange that we got here and her grave is all by itself over here. I don't know if that was something that the cemetery did out of respect or what it was, but she basically had a tumor in her pituitary gland that they didn't find until she was a teenager, so it was accelerating her growth. And so she was a big girl. She said that when she was in junior high, actually, she was 7'1". Here you can see it says Sandra E. Allen, 1955 to 2008. Gentle giant and world's tallest woman, 7'7.25". She seemed like such a sweet person. There's several videos that this channel on YouTube has posted where they were interviewing people at the time for being kind of known as sideshow people that were out of the ordinary, people that have been called freaks, and they would get their perspective on life. And hers was always different than everyone else's. You see, even though it's no question that people look down upon freak shows and sideshows and things like that now because they view it as exploitation of people and their differences or their abnormalities. And here's the interesting thing. I've watched so many interviews with people that made their living in there, and they said nobody else was gonna hire us for any other job. Everywhere we went in our life, people stared at us. At least here, in the sideshow, we were somebody and people had to pay to stare at us. People would mock us and we would say, hey, you're paying to see me, not me paying to see you. So you have to understand that some people viewed it that way. People like the Lobster Boy and the Lobster Boy's kids who had the same abnormalities would say, we can't do any other job and we don't want to be on government assistance. So some people saw that lifestyle as okay. Sandy said she did not like that lifestyle. She would never do the circus or sideshows because she said she felt it was degrading. But what she did do is in Niagara Falls, they had a Guinness Book of World Records museum. And she was what they called part of the human display. And what would happen was you would go through this whole museum and then you would get there, they would open these doors and she would be there, the world's tallest woman, but she wouldn't be a freak. She would actually be there to talk, and she would talk about the challenges, the ups and the downs of what she encountered in her life, and she would let people ask her questions. And she said, I didn't view it as being a freak. I viewed it as letting other people know that being different is okay. And if I could even make one person that was uncomfortable with who they were feel like they could be comfortable with it, then I felt like I had accomplished my goal in life. So Katie, we saw that Sandy would mention that she was on the junior high basketball team, but she wasn't very good, and that they had found out she had a tumor on her knee that was making her legs actually grow at different times. So she encountered a lot of stuff, but she said even though she wasn't very good at basketball and quit playing basketball, she would get her gym shoes from Rick Smits of the Indiana Pacers, right?
Yeah, absolutely. She was actually saying in an interview that she was more afraid of hurting people when she was playing basketball, but she was an absolute big fan, and she ended up getting Reeboks in many pairs. She actually did say she wanted to wear a pair of Shaq's shoes just because she had, I think, a triple E foot. So she's like, it took a long, long time to even break in those.
It was a size 22, so what she said was, as far as she had found a shoe company in Vincennes, Indiana here, which is Red Skelton's hometown, and they would make therapeutic shoes and things like that. And when they met her, they were able to get shoes that she could wear, but she said it was very limited in style, so that was unfortunate. But she did say, yeah, that the Indiana Pacers, she was a big fan of the Pacers and the Indiana Hoosiers, and she said the Pacers would supply her with her athletic shoes, which I thought was just absolutely great. And she said she learned how to be a seamstress in high school economics class, so she could alter her own clothes, and she could occasionally here in town find there was a dress shop here that would actually have things that she could stay in. But unfortunately, she said everything in her house had to be custom made. Her bed, her chair, she said if she had one wish, she wished she could have a house where everything was fitted to her size, where she could have a bathtub and a doorway and everything that she didn't have to worry about. She said, she had to worry about walking in rooms because of ceiling fans. So her childhood home and the home that she lived in most of her life, her mother was a normal size. Her mother was like less than 6 foot tall, like 5'5", I think. She had a brother who was 6 foot. So Sandy was the abnormal one in the family as far as the height and everything. So she lived with her mother. So they were sharing spaces they both had to work within. But she had a job outside of using her height. She actually worked for the city of Indianapolis. And she said she just got laid off and was working also. She would always get offers. She said when she was up there working at the Guinness Book of World Records Museum, she said she went and traveled to another place that had sideshows, and she said she saw that they just had like a fat man in a pit that people just walked around, and she said she was horrified by it because she said there was no human interaction, there was no talking, there was no nothing. It was just staring at somebody who was big. And she said, of course, as soon as they saw me, they tried to offer me a job. She said, I would never work in a place like this. She said she did work for Guinness for 7 years, but she even ended up leaving there because she said she felt like it turned into what she didn't like, which was it just kind of treated her like a sideshow. So she realized that really what she liked about that job was talking to people and answering questions, and especially young people's questions. So she found a new way of making a living where she could do that.
Later in life, she kind of mentioned that she would talk on a lot of talk shows, but really ultimately where she felt so much purpose was speaking with schools and children. I found it very interesting that if she was asked if she could ever change anything about her life, and she said, I'm proud of who I am, I'm proud of my height. And she said that speaking with children and helping them feel better about themselves and anything that they may have felt bad about themselves, she really wanted to make them feel like it was going to be okay and that they were going to be okay. So I do have a lot of respect for her that she kind of took something like this and really tried to make better things of it and educate people.
Yeah, I mean, she said that there was one woman who was 16 years old in China that ended up being bigger than her, who was 8'1", but that woman could never stand on her own and ended up dying at 16. So Sandy said, there was nothing. There were some challenges, but she said there was nothing that I ever encountered, no problems in my life or anything like that I could ever not overcome. And one of the funny things there I thought that was really cool is she said she had a famous friend.
She sure did.
Yeah, she said all of a sudden, while she was working up in Niagara Falls, a very famous musician came in one night and introduced himself, and she said she didn't believe that he was who he said he was, so he spent several minutes convincing her that he was
none other than Michael Jackson.
Yeah, she said Michael Jackson befriended her and actually came to her show every night or every day for several days, and she found him to be a really great guy. She said, you know, I'm from basically the Indianapolis area and he was from North Indiana, so we had a lot in common in that way, and just the way that the world treated us so differently and everything. She said, I found him to be a really nice guy. So it's kind of cool to hear that she, you know, she always saw herself as just a normal person in a big person's body, but that she always wanted people to know that, you know, it was about who you are. So that's why I was just shocked that she'd be right here, because I would have figured, you know, her mother would be next to her or something, but maybe it's just an honor that the cemetery wanted to give her. Much like Robert Wadlow, he also didn't allow himself to be used by circuses and that thing. They used him as an attraction as far as he would talk about his life and everything else, but he would never go out there just to be there because he was the big guy. Kind of wonder if they put the bench right here to show how tall she was. If the bench depicts where her feet would be. I don't know, maybe that's morbid of me to think, but one of the things she said in her interview that really kind of made me sad was that she said because she had always been bigger than everyone else, she never got to participate in any kind of social activities. She said as far as school dances or going out with boys, nobody ever wanted to take her because she was 2 feet taller than them. And she said, you know, even as an adult, she said her love life and dating life was non-existent. Sandy not only had to deal with the tumor in her pituitary gland and then the tumor they found in her knee that was causing her legs to grow at a different size, but she also ended up having tumors in her brain that she had to have operated on. So she had a lot of issues, but she also said that, you know, she got to be on just about every TV show you could think of. So for all the bad, there was always something good, and she listed off literally just about every talk show that there ever was in the 90s. And sadly, when she ended up passing away in 2008 here, we can see on the tombstone that read online that she had a reoccurring blood infection and she had type 2 diabetes, breathing troubles, and kidney failure. And the woman that died at the age of 16, that she said for a short time overtook her as the world's tallest woman in the 80s, that woman also she died of diabetes. So I wonder if that was something that, you know, with their affliction, if that was just something that ended up coming with it. Rest in peace, Sandra Allen. Gentle giant, the world's tallest woman. So sadly, at the end of her life, she was confined to a bed because she had had so many illnesses that her muscles had atrophied, and she ended up going to a nursing home. And it was kind of crazy because at the same time she was there, Edna Parker, who was the world's oldest woman, was in the same nursing home at the same time. She lived into her 50s, so that's longer than Andre the Giant and Robert Wadlow and all the other very big people. Like she said, one of the things that always worried her was when she found out about all the strain that the pituitary gland disorder had put on her body, was that she said she knew that it affects your organs, and your heart's an organ, and so she always thought that maybe it took extra stress on her. But if you can, go on YouTube and watch interviews with her. She was actually very articulate, very fun to listen to. She told a lot of jokes and just had a general positive attitude that I think is kind of reassuring sometimes. Rest in peace, Sandra Allen. Thank you everyone for watching. We'll see you next time from Shelbyville, Indiana. Goodbye.